What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into the Who's Live catalog. Today, I have the Who's Live at the Isle of Wight Festival 1970. This was released in 1996. I'm going to give away a little bit of the ending right now. This is one of my all-time favorite Who releases. This is something I've owned since probably the day it came out in 1996. Absolutely love this release. It is from a 70s show, contains not the complete version of Tommy, but what they were doing as far as Tommy back then, though there is no Sally Simpson, though I think in other shows we did get a Sally Simpson. Other than that, it's just got, it's your typical Who show from 70, chunk of songs that are fantastic. Tommy, a bunch of encore numbers to close out. Jammy, loose, some awesome highs, a great version of Tommy, some good, great sort of back and forth, talking between songs, joking around. The band is obviously in good spirits. Everything about this release, I just absolutely love. I'm going to review it. I'm going to rank it among the other 17 I've already done. I will drop that list at the end. I'm going to not play music from it. But yeah, and I'm generally just going to praise this release a lot and tell you to go check it out because it's fantastic. It opens up with Heaven and Hell. And Heaven and Hell is one of the greatest opening songs of all time, a John Entwistle song. I would say it is by far the Who's best opener ever. It is just ferocious, bludgeoning, like we're just going to come out and bludgeon you for like 5 minutes, just attack you. We're going to sing about heaven, sing about hell. There's going to be guitar frenzy. The band's just going to go crazy. We're just going to just full on attack as we open the show. And that's what they do. Awesome Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell is always awesome. Some great in-between banter. Immediately after this, the banter is starting. You can tell the band is in good spirits. They're joking around, joking with each other. The energy is good. It's palpable. You can feel it. I can't explain. Perfect placement. I think this works better as a second song, especially when Heaven and Hell is the first song than it does as an opener. Perfect. Young Man Blues. Just a ferocious attack. Another one of those where I'm not really a big fan of the song itself, but once we leave the early vocals and the band just starts jamming, it's just like, yeah, this is heaven. Like it's pure noise at one point where you're just like, Entwistle's just playing as much bass as he can, and Moon is just attacking the drums. Pete's just making noise and doing he's not really a lead guitarist. He's not really a rhythm guitarist. He just attacks and just does things. It's just absolutely fantastic. 5+ minutes of just loose, noisy jamming. I Don't Even Know Myself follows, which I think is one of their all-time greatest songs. So many little great parts to this, little riffs, little melodies, the little Western motif that seeps in there. This is awesome, awesome song selection. Then we get Water. Another one of those where I'm not the biggest fan of the opening sort of vocal melody, but as we get deeper and deeper into the song, other melodies start revealing themselves. The jam in this thing is just fantastic. Pete just goes off, just goes off, like just goes crazy. The song itself, this one clocks in I think close to like 9 minutes, maybe a little over 9 minutes. It kind of reminds me of like a condensed version of the Grateful Dead's Turn On Your Love Light from like the 70s, the early 70s, when it would be like, you give Pigpen a little time to sing and then the band jams. And what the band jams around might change from show to show. It might be your typical Love Light jam, or they might just come up with some new little riff they want to do, but then Pigpen returns and then they jam, and then Pigpen returns and they jam. And this isn't quite as blown out as the Dead Love Light, but it has that sense where like, okay, we're going to get some vocals. Then we're going to jam. Then we're going to go back and give Roger some. Then we're going to jam. Then we're going to go back and give Roger some. We got some awesome melodies sprinkled throughout. I just love Water. It's one of those when it starts, I'm like, I just don't like the beginning of this. But by the end of it, I'm like, wow, that's the highlight of the show so far. And that is at what point, that is all that they play prior to playing Tommy at this. It is a festival set. So we get 5 songs with, I'm not going to say an epic Water, but a really good Water to close out sort of the main portion of the set. Then we go into Tommy. Overture opens up, always majestic. Pete gets that little breakdown in the middle where he really gets to shine and explore a little bit. We get Overture, It's a Boy, 1921. That melody in 1921 gets me every time. Amazing journey. Peak goes off. Once again, that shift at about the 3-minute 20 mark, we downshift into that slower groove and we kind of build our way towards like the underture and what would eventually be Sparks. Absolutely fantastic. Love Amazing Journey. We get a Sparks, gets really loud and really big in the middle. Like, this is a festival performance. They are performing for that guy that's all the way in the very, very, very back. And he's so far back that he's sitting down because he can still see over everybody. They're reaching that guy with this Sparks. I don't know what the Isle of Wight looked like. I'm just imagining like Bonnaroo in my head. But this is a huge Sparks performance. Eyesight to the Blind, awesome. Christmas, the melodies in Christmas, another one. The one thing about Tommy, they do a really good job of balancing the rock with the melodic pop. And like you get like Overture, which is like a little proggy, bigger rock. You get I'm a Boy, then you drop into 1921 and that melody's there. Then you get Amazing Journey, which is more of the rock with Sparks. Then you go back finally into Christmas and you got all these melodic hooks that bring you back in. The contrast and relief and the way this album is structured and the way these songs are composed is just perfect. Then we get the Acid Queen, Pinball Wizard, Do You Think It's All Right, Fiddle About. Gonna say this again. Fiddle About should be an instrumental. It's not as rough hearing a 1970 version of The Who singing Fiddle About, but 30, 40 years later when they're doing a Tommy, they're bringing Tommy back and covering it 50 years later. It's hard to listen to these grown men sing Fiddle About. And the music so clearly paints a picture of something wrong happening that you kind of don't need the lyrics. Things aren't really all that going well. There's something ominous about the music. It feels kind of dirty and evil. I just think it would have been pretty impressive to call this Fiddle About, play this music, and let the listener's imagination sort of fill in the blanks. That's worse, I would imagine, than hearing them sing Fiddle About, Fiddling About. It's the weak part of Tommy for me is this song. Tommy, Can You Hear Me? There's a Doctor, Go to the Mirror, Love the Energy and Go to the Mirror, Smash the Mirror, Miracle Cure, I'm Free. That riff and I'm Free, it's just epic, just awesome. Tommy's Holiday Camp, and always just somewhat tumultuous. There's a lot of sort of rough energy in this. It does have a grand building, but it also has this weird, almost like rough energy to the closing, We're Not Going to Take It. There is something very almost like they're feeding off the mass energy of this festival and all these different pockets of people responding in different ways. It's just, I don't know, We're Not Going to Take It. It's just really, really good. And then that's the Tommy part. So we're done with the Tommy segment. This get all brighter all of a sudden, it seemed like it did. That's weird. Yeah. And then we get at the encores. We get a Summertime Blues, pretty straightforward version of that. A Shakin' All Over, Spoonful, Twist and Shout. This also, before we go into the Spoonful, just devolves into a glorious wall of noise. The band's just jamming to jam's sake. Not like they're purposely making noise, but everybody's attack is just such a full-on attack that it just becomes, it's like, what is going on? But in a beautiful, cathartic way. Then we slide into Spoonful. When we go into Twist and Shout, it is clunky as it's almost like John and Keith don't want to play it, so they're not going to do anything you would expect a rhythm section to do during Twist and Shout. And Roger is almost there like, come on, guys, we got this. Let's end with Twist and Shout. The Beatles did it. It'll be fun. But the rest of the band is almost like, nah, man, this is not us. And so while at first it always, to me, just like I always think like I wish they hadn't gone into Twist and Shout. I don't need to hear this song ever again. Ferris Bueller ruined it for me. But by the time they get like halfway through it, I'm like, wow, I only think Roger is the only one who wants to sing this. And the rest of the band seems like they're going to do their best to just like not make it work, which makes it work. So I prefer no Twist and Shout, but the way the band attacks it by the end of it, I'm like, all right, The Who won me over with whatever energy they're bringing to this. Then we get a Substitute. Love this placement. I think Substitute late in the show in the middle of an encore run where you have these more noisier, jammier, bluesier things. Perfection. perfection. It's almost like it's that water between rounds in like a long boxing match, where in like the 10th or 11th round and you sit down and they give you the best drink of Gatorade or water ever. You're like, all right, ready to finish this thing. I've never boxed in my life, but imagine. Then we get a My Generation, a relatively short one, around 7 minutes. We get about 1:45 of My Generation before we launch off into like the jammy, exploratory part. Pete kind of pushes the aggression early and then it lets it dissolve into sort of just like calmness. He messes around, flirts with some Tommy energy, brings it back up. We get like a little water energy in there. We get some more Tommy teases. We bring it back up for another jam. It's your typical Pete and the band are just like, it's almost like there was a giant Thanksgiving Day meal. Thanksgiving was like last week, so it's on my mind still. And they ate a bunch of things, but then there were other things they didn't try. And My Generation is like, okay, I'm just going to have a little more of the turkey. And I'm going to have a little more of the mashed potatoes. You know what? I didn't have any of the cranberry sauce, so I'm going to have a little bit of that now. And that's kind of what the My Generation jam is. It's like Pete's just going to do a bunch of things for however long the band wants to do them for. They're not really cohesive. We're just kind of jumping from idea to idea, but it's the end of the show. So my viewpoint is, yeah, just keep doing this as long as possible, because otherwise the show's going to end. They only do it for like 7 minutes, but then we go into Naked Eye, which is always fantastic. The middle of this, it's almost like Pete and John are kind of going at it, guitar and bass. Then we get this really frenzied finish. It's almost like entropy kind of sets in and the band just feels like they're going to fall apart. There's noise. Doesn't sound like anybody knows what they're doing other than it's just we're going to play until somebody comes up with an idea. And then Pete kind of works them, starts playing a little guitar and works them towards a magic bus. And we get a relatively short magic bus, like 5 minutes, some nice harmonica. Only play for about 3 minutes before it just completely falls apart. I'm sure at this point their festival time was over. They had to get off the stage. The band just falls apart. Pete tries some more riffs, plays a couple times, kind of re-brings some energy, lasts for like another minute and a half, and then the show ends. The absolutely fantastic show ends. It's jammy, but it's not too indulgent. It's nowhere near as like, there's no 30-minute My Generations. The jams are maybe a couple minutes shorter than maybe some of the other stuff they did years earlier, or maybe even in 71, things maybe got a little bit longer. The mood of the band is great. The early banter, I think, really helps the atmosphere of the show. And it's just a great selection of songs. I think one of the reasons when you see my ranking, this will be ranked as high as it is that I Don't Even Know Myself. Love that inclusion in here. The Water. Love that inclusion. Tommy, of course, is one of the reasons it's up because I love Tommy. But then at the end, the Shaking All Over Spoonful Twist and Shout, that's neat. That's not in all of these releases. And then everything else, and the Naked Eye. Anytime there's a Naked Eye, you're going to get extra points for that. So I love this release. It was the second Who release I ever bought. The first one I ever bought was Live at Leeds. I did not buy another until this one came out. And so those are pretty much the only two I've listened to until I recently started this deep dive. But I think this thing is just absolutely fantastic. That being said, where would I rank it if I had to rank it among all the others? And as of right now, I have it at number 2. Because I have to admit, that one at number 1, it's a little bit better. Those jams are a little bit longer, a little bit tastier, a little bit more exploratory, a little bit out there. But there's no complaints about this. This is not 2 because of any fault of its own. It's 2 because something else came along and was like, the mantle is now mine. I am one. So yeah, live at the Isle of Wight Festival 1970, I would say this is a must-have Who live release. And that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do those things. Let me know what you think of this release, of The Who, things I messed up on. If you were there, is there anybody old enough watching this that was actually there? That would be fantastic. But anyways, yeah, all right. Thanks for watching. That's all I got. Peace. Talk to you later.